Now, how do you celebrate your spouse? Now, first of all, assess whether you're doing it and how well you're doing it. Where are you doing it? When are you doing it? Most people never are conscious about, how do I celebrate my spouse?
On the morning of Thursday, May 7th, 2026, Rachel Lamb Brown and Rebecca Lamb Weiss were on the air at Daystar television network. The cameras were running. The broadcast was going out to more than 64 million American households, as it had done dozens of times before. And somewhere in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, in a home in Bedford, Texas, their mother was dying. They did not know. Joni Lamb, co-founder of Daystar television network, died that Thursday at age 65. Her eldest child, Jonathan Lamb, learned she was gone approximately 10 minutes before the network announced it publicly on social media. The call came not from his sisters, not from Doug Weiss, but from Daystar's board attorney, Tom Callender. Jonathan's wife, Suzy Lamb, went to X within hours of the announcement and wrote, "We weren't informed of anything. We were down the road, but weren't given a call to say goodbye. We forgive them." She added in a second post, "They knew she was dying Wednesday evening, and they didn't call Jonathan to come say goodbye." Both posts are published and documented. They are among the most precise public statements in the entire documented record of this story, because they answer the question of what the final hours of Joni Lamb's life looked like from the outside, with a clarity that no institutional statement from Daystar has ever matched. A son was down the road. His phone did not ring. His mother's attorney called him when it was over. Before we go any further, the sourcing note this story requires. Everything in this video is drawn from primary source documentation. The Roy's Report, founded by veteran investigative journalist Julie Roys, a former CBS television reporter, is the primary outlet for the investigative record. Additional confirmed sources include Daystar's own July 2026 newsletter, published at blog.daystar.com and quoted verbatim in this video. Jonathan Lamb's public Instagram statement, confirmed through multiple independent sources. Suzy Lamb's X posts, published on May 7th, 2026, and referenced directly by the Roy's Report's death announcement article by Mark A. Kellner, the Trinity Foundation's property research, and Heart to Heart Counseling Center's confirmed active business listings as of August 2026. Where specific claims represent reported testimony rather than confirmed public record, we will say so clearly. Now let us go back to the beginning of Doug Weiss's presence at Daystar, because you cannot understand his disappearance without understanding how he arrived. Before Doug Weiss ever appeared on Daystar television, he had spent roughly 3 decades building a professional identity in Colorado Springs, Colorado. His practice, Heart to Heart Counseling Center, at 720 Elkton Drive, specializes in sexual addiction recovery, betrayal trauma, and a framework he developed and trademarked called intimacy anorexia, the emotional and physical withholding of closeness within a marriage. His Psychology Today profile lists him as available for in-person and online therapy. He authored more than 40 books and appeared on mainstream programs including Oprah, Dr. Phil, Good Morning America, and Fox News. He was a credentialed clinician, licensed as a professional counselor in Colorado since 2000 and as a psychologist since 2008, per the Colorado Division of Regulatory Agencies licensing database. He arrived at Daystar through one channel only: his proximity to Joni Lamb in her grief. Marcus Lamb, Joni's husband of more than 30 years and the co-founder of Daystar, died on November 28, 2021, from COVID-19. His death came after a very public period in which he had appeared on Daystar multiple times to discourage COVID vaccination, and which left Joni leading a network alone through an institutional crisis that was already deepening before Marcus died. In that environment, Joni and Weiss grew close. On June 10, 2023, they married. The marriage was preceded by Weiss's divorce from his wife of more than 30 years, Lisa Weiss, a divorce filed on January 27, 2022, 58 days after Marcus Lamb's death, and finalized by May 31, 2022. Both dates are confirmed by Colorado court records published by the Roy's Report. The marriage generated immediate concern from multiple directions. Jonathan and Suzy Lamb opposed it on biblical grounds, objecting that Weiss did not have what they considered legitimate scriptural justification for ending his first marriage. Rodney Howard-Browne, the revivalist pastor and longtime Daystar guest, whom Marcus had considered a close friend, warned Joni before the wedding that the relationship was biblically wrong and would cost her dearly. Denise Boggs, a professional counselor who had counseled both Doug and Lisa Weiss in the period before the divorce, wrote an impassioned letter to Joni's family 2 months before the wedding, obtained, verified, and published by the Roy's Report, calling Weiss a wolf in sheep's clothing, stating he was of no caliber for such a high platform, and warning that Joni had come under a spirit of deception through his influence. None of that stopped the wedding, and from June 10th, 2023, onward, Doug Weiss was embedded at Daystar in ways that went well beyond a new spouse attending his wife's workplace. He co-hosted Ministry Now, Daystar's daily flagship live broadcast, alongside Joni. He hosted his own recurring program, Healing Time with Dr. Doug Weiss, airing Monday through Friday at 11:30 in the morning Eastern. He became the second most visible non-family face on the network. He received, per Joni Lamb's direct testimony to the Roy's report, a six-figure consulting salary from Daystar from the time of the marriage, a salary that Joni confirmed was deliberately shielded from the network's own HR software at Joni's personal instruction. Joni told the Roy's report that when he asked the HR department for access to the 2023 payroll system, staff told him he could view every employee's compensation except two, Joni's and Doug Weiss's. For nearly 2 years, that was Doug Weiss's position at Daystar. Not a board member, not an officer, not named in any succession document, not connected to the ministry in any institutional sense that predated or existed independently of his personal relationship to the woman who controlled it. A husband on air, on salary, with platform access that reached 64 million American households, all of it dependent on a single personal relationship remaining intact. Then, in April of 2026, that relationship began its final chapter publicly. On April 6, 2026, Weiss appeared live on Ministry Now and addressed Joni's absence from the broadcast. He told viewers she had been off-air because of 2 hairline fractures in her spine. He asked for prayer. In the comment sections of that broadcast and across the watchdog communities that had been closely tracking Daystar's institutional story, the response was immediate skepticism. Viewers who had been watching Joni's visible physical changes over the preceding months, significant changes in her weight and apparent energy, alterations in her speech, the kind of whole-body deterioration that does not typically follow from spinal compression fractures alone, pushed back hard. Weiss did not elaborate. Daystar issued no additional statement. What Weiss did not disclose, and what the network has never publicly confirmed, was reported by the Roy's report's anonymous source in a recorded interview conducted after Joni's death. That source's identity was confirmed by Julie Roy's personally, though kept anonymous at the source's request. According to this account, Joni had been diagnosed with breast cancer that had metastasized into her bones. The hairline spinal fractures Weiss described on April 6th were not a primary injury. They were a consequence of that cancer's spread into her skeletal system. Daystar has never confirmed or denied this. Their official statements about Joni's health before and after her death used only the language of serious health matters and a recent back injury. The word cancer was never used. Here's a critical factual clarification about the final days of Joni's life, because an error has circulated widely in coverage of this story and deserves direct correction. Multiple outlets reported that Joni died at the Oasis of Hope Cancer Treatment Clinic in Tijuana, Mexico. The Roy's report's confirmed death report, written by Mark A. Kellner and published on May 7, 2026, states that Joni Lamb died while at her Texas home, specifically referencing the Dallas-Fort Worth area home where she had lived. The Oasis of Hope Clinic in Tijuana is where Trinity Foundation's investigation identified travel in the months before her death, based on the Daystar Gulfstream's final confirmed flights to San Diego, a city approximately 25 minutes from the Tijuana clinic. Joni received treatment there during her illness, but the Roy's report's published death announcement does not confirm she was at the clinic when she died. The anonymous source's recorded account describes her final days and the circumstances of the family's access to her, but the specific location of her death per the primary published record is Texas. This distinction matters, and we will not overstate what the primary sources confirm. What the anonymous source's account does document with precision is the access and communications picture in Joni's final days. The source told the Roy's report that she attempted to reach Joni by text during this period and received a response that felt cold and uncharacteristic. The words, "I've tried everything," leading her to suspect that Weiss had taken control of Joni's phone and was managing her communications. Julie Roy's, in her published analysis, explicitly acknowledged that Joni may simply have been too ill to respond as she normally would. The source's account is presented as her subjective experience and reasonable suspicion, not as a confirmed fact about Weiss's conduct. What is confirmed is that Suzy Lamb's public X posts stated that Joni was not called to come say goodbye, even though, in Suzy's words, they knew she was dying Wednesday evening. A son was down the road. The phone did not ring. The board attorney called when it was over. Now let us go to the event that, more than any other single development, determines the question of what happens to Daystar next, and which happened not in Tijuana, not at a funeral home, and not in a board meeting, but in a private home visit approximately 3 weeks before Joni died. According to the anonymous sources account published in full in the Roy's Reports podcast episode titled Joni's Stunning Request, Give Daystar to Jonathan. If he reconciles, Tom Callender visited Joni at her home roughly 3 weeks before her death. Despite being gravely ill, Joni was sitting up in her makeup chair for the meeting. She had dressed and prepared herself for the conversation, and she told Callender directly, "If Jonathan tries to reach out, give him back Daystar." When the source contacted Callender in the days between Joni's death and the scheduled memorial, hoping to arrange a reconciliation meeting between Jonathan and his sisters before the funeral, Callender's response, as she described it to the Roy's Report, was one of the most emotional moments in this entire documented saga. He wept on the phone. He said he had been waiting for that phone call. He confirmed Joni's statement to him in the makeup chair. He promised to reach out to Rachel and Rebecca and call back. He did call back. And when he did, the answer he relayed from the sisters was that they were not ready. They would meet with Jonathan after the funeral, not before. Callender told the source, "I cannot make the pre-funeral meeting happen." The source told the Roy's Report that she had wanted the meeting on the Saturday before the Monday funeral. The window closed. Callender then called Jonathan and Suzy directly, the first direct contact in a long time. Suzy described him on that call as warm and emotionally open, saying he could not wait to wrap his arms around them, that carrying the weight of this family division had been one of the most stressful experiences of his life. He wept with them. He confirmed the 3-week before death meeting with Joni and what she had said to him. Jonathan lost it, the source told the Roy's Report, in the way you lose it when something you had given up hoping for suddenly comes back. The funeral took place on May 18, 2026, at Gateway Church in Southlake, Texas. Jonathan and Suzy attended. They were not seated with the family. Jonathan was given no speaking role. Rachel eulogized her mother. Rebecca appeared alongside her. Pastor Gentezin Franklin delivered the central sermon. Julie Roys, writing directly about the service, described Franklin's message as one of the worst cases of spiritual abuse she had ever witnessed. A message in which he told the assembled audience that if someone is preaching the gospel to the nations, criticizing that person is the smallest, most inconsequential act imaginable, and that God had personally directed him to deliver this message at Joni's funeral. Franklin never said Jonathan's name. He did not need to. The man seated behind a camera at the far edge of the stage, excluded from the family cluster, unnamed in either sister's eulogy, absent from the memorial slideshow. Everyone in the room and everyone watching understood who the message was aimed at. Doug Weiss did not appear live. He submitted a pre-recorded video message in which he reflected on his relationship with Joni and explained that his grief would overwhelm him if he attempted to speak in person. That video was his last publicly confirmed appearance connected to Daystar in any form. He has not appeared live on the network since the April 6th Ministry Now segment, the broadcast where he told viewers Joni had hairline spinal fractures and asked for prayer. 2 days after the memorial, on May 20th at 11:39 in the morning, Tom Callender sent a text message to the anonymous source. The Roy's Report published the verbatim content of that message. It read, "Please correct your statement immediately that you spoke to the head of the board and that I said anything to you about what Joni's last wishes were. I did not share any such statement with you." The reversal was total. The man who had wept with relief at the prospect of reconciliation, who had confirmed Joni's dying wish in a recorded interview, corroborated independently by Jonathan and Suzy Lamb, now, in writing, denied the entire conversation had taken place. Suzy Lamb, upon hearing of the text, described Callender's about-face with 2 words, pure evil. Jonathan Lamb's public response to the account of his mother's reported final wish was published on his personal Instagram and distributed through the Roy's Report. The statement read in part, "Learning that my mother's dying wish was for me to return to leadership at Daystar is both healing and deeply confirming. The estrangement between us was one of the most painful seasons of my life, and knowing that her heart moved toward restoration in her final days brings me a peace I didn't expect to feel so soon. Her wish aligns with what my father communicated to our family and the board in his succession plan. Both of my parents, in their final days, pointed in the same direction. This was never about ambition or title. It's about faithfulness to a calling my parents recognized and that I have never walked away from, even in the hardest moments. My desire is to honor my parents, to seek peace where peace is possible, and to see Daystar flourish for generations to come. I am hopeful that the board will honor what my mother asked for and what my father asked for before her. Daystar has never belonged to any one person. It belongs to God. I remain ready to serve." In a separate Instagram post, Jonathan added a note about reconciliation, expressing that he and Suzy had been willing to pursue peace and forgiveness with the family and remained willing to do so. Those words deserve to be held for a moment before moving on. There is no ultimatum in them. There is no public demand directed at the board or at his sisters by name. There is no point scoring. A man who was tracked by a GPS device placed in his car by his mother's own security chief, who was surveilled by a private investigator hired to follow his family on residential streets, who was fired by an armed security guard on a Saturday morning, who found out his mother died from the ministry's attorney 10 minutes before the social media announcement. That man's public response to learning she had wanted him home was to say he remained ready to serve and that Daystar belongs to God. Now we come to what the public official record shows about where Daystar is headed, and the most definitive document in that record is not a board announcement, not a governance statement, and not a press release. It is a letter. Daystar's July 2026 monthly newsletter, the monthly communication Joni Lamb had written personally for years, was published at blog.daystar.com with one significant change from every previous edition. The personal message section was no longer Joni's. It was signed by Rachel Lamb Brown and Rebecca Lamb Weiss. The letter is worth quoting in full because every word of it is a deliberate institutional communication, and every omission in it is equally deliberate. Rachel and Rebecca wrote to the Daystar donor base, "Dear Daystar family, first we want to say thank you. The outpouring of love, prayers, and encouragement we have received over these past weeks has been overwhelming in the best possible way. We have read your messages, heard your stories, and been deeply touched by the countless lives our mom impacted through her faith, her friendship, and her unwavering commitment to sharing the love of Jesus. We know many of you looked forward to hearing from Mom each month, and there was nothing she loved more than sharing hope and encouragement from God's Word with you. That's why, as we were putting together this month's newsletter, we wanted to personally fill this space with a note to our faithful partners. While we miss Mom more than words can say, we are so grateful for the legacy of faith she leaves behind and for the opportunity to continue this work together. Daystar was founded on a simple but profound mission to reach the world with the gospel of Jesus Christ. That calling continues today, and we are deeply honored to carry the vision forward alongside each of you. Together, we will continue sharing hope, proclaiming truth, and pointing people to Jesus until every soul has the opportunity to hear the good news. One of the greatest gifts our parents gave us was the example of a life surrendered to God's calling. They taught us to trust the Lord through every season, and as we look to the future, we do so with confidence, knowing that God is faithful. He has wonderful things ahead for Daystar and for the millions of people who will encounter His love through this ministry. In the coming months, this special place in the newsletter will feature messages from different members of our Daystar leadership team. We'll use it to share important ministry updates, exciting network news, and stories of what God is doing around the world as Daystar continues to grow and reach more people with the gospel. Thank you for believing in this mission. Thank you for praying. Thank you for giving. Thank you for standing with us through every season. We are honored to continue this journey with you as we work together to share the hope of Jesus with the world. With our love and gratitude, Rachel Lamb Brown and Rebecca Lamb Weiss. That letter is warm. It is faith-grounded. It is written in a register that Joni herself used for years in these exact communications. And it contains not one mention of Jonathan Lamb, not one mention of Doug Weiss, not one mention of the succession question, the board, the estate, or the governance structure. The transition being communicated to the Daystar donor base is generational, from mother to daughters, with both the widowed husband and the firstborn son written cleanly out of the official narrative. The letter says they will carry the vision forward alongside each of you. The you in that sentence is the donors. There is no named alongside for anyone else, which brings us back to the question this video started with. Where did Doug Weiss go? His professional life outside of Daystar has continued without interruption, heart to heart. Counseling Center at 720 Elkton Drive in Colorado Springs is confirmed as actively operating as of August 2026, per Yelp's confirmed business listing. His Psychology Today profile continues to list him as available for in-person and online therapy at the center, with the Partners of Sex Addicts group meeting Monday through Friday from 9 in the morning to 6 in the evening. His website, drdugweiss.com, continues to describe him as the founder and executive director of Heart to Heart and a nationally recognized authority on sexual addiction and marriage recovery. His social media activity in the weeks following Joni's death, where it has been observable at all, has focused on therapeutic content, EMDR therapy, men's emotional health, fasting. There has been no public reference to Daystar, to his television role, or to his loss. He has returned professionally and publicly to exactly the lane he occupied before Joni Lamb entered his life. Daystar's official program directory, as of the time of this video, still lists Healing Time with Dr. Doug Weiss as airing Monday through Friday at 11:30 in the morning Eastern. Whether this reflects active current programming or a legacy listing that has not yet been formally removed in the post-Joni transition is not confirmed by any Daystar official communication. No Daystar statement has addressed Weiss's future role at the network. No Daystar statement has confirmed he no longer has one. The silence on this specific question has been as complete as the silence in the July newsletter. From a strategic institutional standpoint, the logic of that silence is not hard to follow. Restoring Doug Weiss to the air would revive every controversy his presence at Daystar generated. The 58-day timeline between Marcus Lamb's death and the divorce filing, the concealment of that divorce for 8 months while he continued counseling clients as an implicitly married man, the 2 Colorado State Board disciplinary actions against his professional license, the 2002 formal admonition for misrepresenting credentials by calling himself a licensed marriage and family therapist when he held no such license, and the 2010 joint final agency order from the Board of Psychologist Examiners and the Board of Licensed Professional Counselor Examiners finding that he had acted as, in their words, an executioner of a client's marriage rather than a therapist working to restore it, the $103,000 honeymoon charged to Joni's Daystar corporate card with unresolved reimbursement documentation, the $769,000 estimate of personal jet travel documented by Trinity Foundation, the March 2026 quitclaim deed removing his name from the Miramar Beach, Florida condominium 8 weeks before Joni died, and the 7 former female clients who told the Roy's report on record that their intensive programs at Heart to Heart left them more traumatized than before. None of that goes away by putting him back on camera, and none of it needs to be relitigated publicly if he is simply not there. The silence serves the institutional interest. It is the same logic that has governed every difficult question at Daystar since Marcus Lamb died. Say as little as possible, let time do the work, and trust the loyalty of the partner base to fill the silence with faith. The structural reality underlying all of this deserves to be stated directly, because it is not a minor footnote. It is the architecture within which everything in this story has operated. Daystar's parent entity, Word of God Fellowship Incorporated, classifies as a church for IRS purposes. That classification exempts it from filing the Form 99. Oh, that nearly every comparable nonprofit organization is required to submit publicly. Trinity Broadcasting Network, which Daystar's own accounting claims to reach fewer American homes than Daystar does, files a Form 990, a public document that shows board composition, officer salaries, compensation for top employees, and major financial transactions. Anyone who gives to TBN can verify in a public government filing how that money is being managed. Anyone who gives to Daystar cannot. There is no equivalent document. The board is not publicly named. The new executive leadership team that Daystar's official statement said Joni had assembled before her death was not identified in that statement. When the Roy's report contacted Daystar's spokesman Chase Jennings following Joni's death to ask for those names, he did not immediately respond. As of the time of this video, Daystar has still not publicly identified who is on its board of directors. The July 2026 newsletter tells the Daystar donor base to keep trusting, keep praying, keep giving, that God is faithful and has wonderful things ahead. It asks them to stand with Rachel and Rebecca as they carry the vision forward. It is exactly the kind of appeal that has funded this ministry for 30 years. And the people it is asking to keep giving have no formal mechanism, no Form 990, no public board, no named governance structure to verify how their money is being managed by whoever is running the institution now. That is not a new problem at Daystar. It is the same problem NPR documented in 2014. It is the same problem Trinity Foundation has documented through property records and jet flight logs over multiple years. It is the same problem that Benita Beth Brock of Sarcoxie, Missouri, ran into when she wrote to ask for a refund of 27 years of donations and received a letter calling Joni's own son a man with a corrupt spirit of greed and power. The opacity is not a design flaw. It is the design.